What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 28 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Monday, December 9th, 2024. I'm your host, Zach Malamud. Before we get started today, please subscribe below, follow all of my social accounts. Let's get things going with the breaking news out of Queens. Hold on to your seats. Juan Soto has signed a 15-year, $765 million deal to sign with the New York Mets and goes across the borough from the Bronx to Queens, and this deal up to $805 million, it seems, after 2029. That's how really the opt-out will work in the end. $805 million it would turn out to be for those 15 years of Juan Soto. Obviously, there's positives and negatives for both teams in my mind. Let's start it off with the New York Mets. The positive: they got Juan Soto. They got their guy. They said in the offseason they were going to go all out for him. Steve Cohen really had no dollar limit on Juan Soto. He was going to go out and get him. I think when you look at this deal, it's really up there with some of the greatest days in the history of the New York Mets. Obviously, all the pain and everything that they've been through, and really they get a new owner in who completely changed the dynamic of this franchise and what they're looking for. The top free agents, making them really a destination for those top free agents. They get Juan Soto in the end. They got their guy, and that's one of the greatest moments really in Mets franchise history, something that they're going to be very happy about. Obviously, Mets fans are loving it so far, and they get their guy. They have to really go after it now, and getting Juan Soto, they get the step one done. But now you go to the other side of it for the Mets. Still a long way to go. They got to get pitching badly. Obviously, their starting rotation right now is not filled, and they have some guys that they picked up. Yes, Clay Holmes going to be a starter for them. It looks like Frankie Montas already grabbed him this offseason, but they got a lot of other holes to fill. Really getting an ace, I think, is the biggest thing for the New York Mets. Obviously, there's discussions of them getting Corbin Burns. They're looking at some other guys. Garrett Crochet is involved as well, and in talks from the Chicago White Sox to the New York Mets. So long way still to go. They obviously have Pete Alonso and that discussion going on. They're obviously still negotiating with Alonso, and maybe will he take a lesser bit of a price to come back to the New York Mets. And obviously he's been so important for the Mets over the last 6 years or so. Obviously they want him back, and obviously that's something that the Mets will look forward to, getting him back in the lineup. So long way still to go. I will say, when you listen to some of these reporters, of course, they're coming from some of the top guys, your Buster Olneys, your Jeff Passons, even your John Heymans of the world. The thing that they're saying that I don't necessarily agree with is that Juan Soto chose to go to the Mets because of their future. I think that was part of it, but if anybody knows Scott Boras and has seen historically how Scott Boras' clients work, they go to the highest bidder no matter what. Whether it's the best situation, whether it's the worst situation, if somebody's giving them the money and giving them the most money, and this one, although it's reported that, it was only $5 million, obviously that clause that I just talked about, making it $805 million, that makes the difference there. Taking $45 million more, yeah, you go to the Mets, and even so, the Mets have been in the playoffs. They obviously made it all the way to the championship series last year, so they are involved each and every year in trying to get there, but this one comes down to the money. He got the most money by far, and it was more than the Yankees were offering per year. It was more than the Yankees were offering overall. So in the end, he chose it for the money, and you cannot fault him. He's one of the greats when it comes to players before the age of 26. Obviously now turned 26 in October, but the stats don't lie. He's up there with some of the greats in all of baseball history. Mel Ott is one of the names. Mickey Mantle, another name. Ted Williams, a third name. I mean, the stats speak for themselves, and what a deal it is for the New York Mets to grab him, and what a deal it is for Juan Soto to sign that massive amount of a deal and get that massive amount of money that sets him for a long, long time and sets him for life in the end to sign with the New York Mets. So that's a big one for the New York Mets. What a signing for them in the end. Let's take things to the other side, because obviously here in New York, a lot of talk and what's going to happen on the other side with the New York Yankees. I think when you look at the negative for the Yankees, yeah, I mean, they lost out on one of the best in today's game in Juan Soto. The positive from that is that, yes, they still have Aaron Judge, the AL MVP from last year, and a two-time AL MVP. Of course, the problem with that, though, is Judge a bit older. Soto, they could have had him for the future now, and he's still only 26 years old. So that's a big negative for the Yankees. They lose out on one of the best players this year, and arguably their best player when it came to postseason time. The big moments, he stepped up. He was unbelievable. Sent them to the World Series in the end with that home run. But I think when you look at the positives that you turn from this for the Yankees is one guy doesn't win a championship. You've seen that year after year in baseball. Even the biggest name and the best name in the sport needs guys around him to ultimately win a championship. That's the task now for the New York Mets surrounding Juan Soto. But for the Yankees, that's another task that they've been looking to do around Aaron Judge for years and years already. Obviously signed him a couple years ago to that massive extension, and they've been trying to put pieces together around Aaron Judge and really around Gerrit Cole in the end, their ace, to get the job done and ultimately win a championship. So this is not the biggest loss that a lot of people are talking about for the New York Yankees. It's a massive loss, 100%. Obviously, one of the greats, like I said, before the age of 26. However, if you're asking Brian Cashman how he's feeling today, he'll probably say business goes on, and we continue to roll and try and fill those holes that the Yankees have so many of when it comes to some maybe even touching up on starting pitching, touching up on a lot of holes in that lineup. I mean, we're talking about half of the lineup is not filled yet, and they still have to figure out an opening day roster, the Yankees do. Of course, they're going to bring up some guys, and Jason Dominguez, who played last year for the Yankees, he's going to step in, but they need to make a lot of signings here and obviously move some guys around in the lineup and figure things out. So when you look at this overall, I said it, Brian Cashman saying, yep, business goes on. We keep going and just find more guys to help fill holes around Aaron Judge and around Gerrit Cole in this Yankee squad. And when you look at the Yankees overall, still made it very, very far to the World Series. Yes, Juan Soto being a big part of that, but they need a lot of touching up to do. I think it would probably limit them if they had a guy like Juan Soto in that and locked down to his contract. I don't think the Yankees would be able to touch up on the same things that they're now able to in this offseason as well as next offseason. They need to figure a lot of things out, and obviously the thing that they've gone to so much recently in home runs has not really helped them too much. They really have realized, I think, that they need more contact hitters in the end and guys that can get on base and set things up for guys like Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton now. That's the big thing for the Yankees. So a lot to look forward to in this offseason. But the final positive, I would say, for Yankee fans who are really just struggling today and can't get through it, he could be a Red Sox. He could be a Red Sox. He could be in Boston. You could have to play him over 15 times every single season. You can see him on the other side of New York. Yeah, he'll be in the newspaper every single day. But you don't have to play him too often. Yeah, you'll play him in those couple of series, which should be very interesting. Juan Soto's return to the Bronx, May 16th. Mark your calendars, because that one will be very interesting for Juan Soto, and will be interesting to see how the Yankee fans greet him at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. But Juan Soto, the biggest contract in sports history, 15 years, $765 million, goes up to $805 million after 2029, like I mentioned before. This one, the biggest deal for the New York Mets, and what a day for them, and Met fans should really enjoy this one for a long, long time. We take things to the gridiron as the New York Jets were in action on Sunday. So were the New York Giants. But let's start off with the New York Jets in a close game that finished in overtime against the Miami Dolphins. Jets fall to 3-10 and just continue to find ways to lose games, even when they actually seem like they play well. They continue to find ways to lose games. And just another example here on Sunday, a 32-26 loss for the Jets. And I mentioned 3-10 the Jets are now. Dolphins moved to 6-7, trying to get themselves back into that picture in the AFC playoffs. When you look at this game overall, the Jets did not play bad. And finally, Aaron Rodgers threw for a lot of yards, finally got over that hurdle of 300 yards and getting there, and just the struggle it's been for the last couple of years for him to get to that number. 27 of 39, 339 passing yards, and 1 touchdown. In the end, that's a great game from Aaron Rodgers. That's what you wanted to see. However, the Jets just could not figure it out on defense, and that's the problem. The offense plays well one day, the defense is poor that same day, and it just goes both ways. 402 total yards, though, for this Jets offense. That's a great sign to see that things are starting to click. Yeah, it's a little bit too late for that, but 402 total yards. Jets got to be happy about how their offense played. However, on the defensive side, they could not stop a nosebleed there when it came to stopping the Miami Dolphins and getting them out of bad situations. 375 total yards in response from Miami, and they win it in overtime, 32-26. They end up getting the touchdown from Jonnu Smith and in overtime, and that gives them the 6-point win. That's a big win for Miami. Massive division win, as well as a massive win, like I said, to keep them in the mix in the AFC playoff picture. But I mean, as a Jets fan, you can't really be too mad with how they played in the end. You just got to be disappointed that even when they do play well, just something doesn't go right, and all of a sudden they continue to find ways to screw it up and lose. So that's a tough one to swallow for the New York Jets. Of course, this one was a Jets lead, and it came down to Anders Carlson hit a field goal. Jets are up 3, 52 seconds left, and the defense can't get a stop. 7 seconds on the clock, and Jason Sanders tied it, went to overtime, and I mentioned Jonnu Smith with the winner. But the Jets did everything possible, it seemed, on offense to get them the win, and it just did not come to fruition. And they fall once again, 32-26 in overtime. The Dolphins beat the Jets, and the Jets fall to 3-10 on the year. I said it to plenty of my Jets fan friends. It could be worse. It could be the New York Giants. Let's go to the Giants, who played at MetLife. And actually, I think a lot of Giants fans, I talk to Josh Mallett each and every week, and he's saying on Wednesday, like, he's very happy about this. Continue to lose games. They need a quarterback badly, the Giants do. They realize that. And Graham Gano almost screwed it up, almost sent it to overtime, maybe giving the Giants a chance to win this game against the Saints, but they end up losing 14-11. Giants fall to 2-11, sit at the basement of the NFL, and still have not won a home game, even with the banners and the planes coming by and all the stuff being said towards John Mara right now. It still doesn't matter. The Giants still cannot win at home. The Saints moved to 5-8. Like I said, Giants at 2-11. This game overall, I mean, the Giants did a great job on defense. They were able to really hold this New Orleans offense to not many yards and not many scores in the end. The Giants offense as well, you got to take the positives from it. 325 total yards on offense, and they just figured things out and got things done. Yeah, I think a lot of those came towards the second half, and the Giants able to get the late score. 4 minutes on the clock. Tyrone Tracy gets the rushing touchdown. They get the 2-point conversion, and it's all of a sudden just a 3-point deficit, but then they could not get the stop on New Orleans, and New Orleans takes it by 3 in the end. And the Giants, had a couple of opportunities, an interception on one drive, then New Orleans punts it, and then Graham Gano in the end had the field goal to tie the game, but it gets blocked by a hand on New Orleans, and Giant fans, actually, some of them take a sigh of relief, say, all right, well, we didn't win that game. We didn't want to win it anyways. And they fall to 2-11 and look towards the future now and continue to look towards the future. But some positive signs, I would say, on offense for the Giants this week. Defense played strong, and they just couldn't get a win in the end, much to the delight of a lot of Giants fans, like I mentioned. So they fall 14-11, and the Saints move to 5-8. Giants move to 2-11, and they look towards another week sitting at the basement of the NFL. Shifting things to the hardwood, the New York Knicks are in action tonight against the Toronto Raptors. 7:30 start. Knicks come in as 6.5-point favorites, total sitting at 231.5. Knicks 14-9 on the year. Raptors 7-17. Knicks coming off the loss to Detroit on Saturday on their home floor. And for Knicks fans, the excuse in that game was, oh, they didn't have Karl Anthony Towns. That's not a good enough excuse in my mind. They go up against a Pistons team that was only 9-15 at the time. They should be handling them on their home floor. The Knicks should be a 120-111 loss in the end. And the problems in my mind were from last year. They just came back in this game. And yes, they don't have Cat, so they were out-rebounded by 12, and I think that maybe is more so an excuse of not having Cat in this game and maybe some of those other bigs down low that they've been missing. But when you look at the Knicks in this game against the Pistons, free throw shooting, another problem. Once again, the Knicks did not shoot well from the free throw line, only 59% on the night, 16 of 27 they were from the free throw line. You're not going to win any game like that in the NBA. And then you look at the other side, for Detroit was they shot the three ball very well. That's something that the Knicks have a weakness against. They allow too many threes and don't guard against the threes enough. And once teams start racking up threes against them, Detroit had 18 of them. That really makes it a lopsided game. And in the end, Detroit gets a 9-point win at the Knicks. And the Knicks really need to bounce back now. And a stretch here that we were talking about just a couple weeks ago, we're saying, all right, well, the Knicks just win all of these games and really easy games in the end. They're all of a sudden sitting 16-8 and feeling good heading into the NBA Cup. They take a loss, though. They're now 14-9. So they need to bounce back tonight. I mentioned 6.5-point favorites coming into this one. Cat's a game time decision tonight. So keep an eye on that campaign, a game time decision as well. So this one should be interesting. 6.5-point favorites. The Knicks are. Tune into this one, 7:30 tonight. The 14-9 Knicks taking on the 7-17 Raptors in Toronto. And let's finish things off today with a Monday Night Football preview. It's the 4-8 Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Jerry's World to take on the 5-7 Dallas Cowboys. 8:15 tonight. And Cincinnati comes into this game as 4.5-point favorites. Total sitting at 49.5. Looking at this game overall, I'm going to say the Bengals, clearly are the favorites coming in. However, I think the Cowboys give them a run for their money here. I'm going to pick the Cowboys to cover this spread at 4.5. I do think probably the Bengals will win the game, but I do think when it comes to the momentum of this Cowboys team versus the Bengals, you look at the Cowboys and Cowboy fans feeling good right now. They did win 2 NFC East games that they're feeling good about. I know the Commanders have been good this year, but just pump the brakes just a second here as they beat the Commanders in the end, but they've owned the Commanders for whatever some odd years now, and they've also owned the New York Giants, who they defeated on Thanksgiving Day. So pump the brakes just a second here, Cowboy fans. However, I do think they keep it close tonight because of the weakness that is the Cincinnati Bengals defense. They are horrendous so far this season, and I think they're going to let up a lot of points to this Dallas offense that, although it hasn't looked pretty throughout this season, the last couple of weeks and even last week gave me some positive signs of how this offense is running under Cooper Rush. Rico Dowdle's been really, really strong. They do have to get CeeDee Lamb a lot more involved than they have been. I think that's the one point that you would say, all right, yeah, the Cowboys need to fix that. But Rico Dowdle's been really, really good, and they're going up against the Bengals defense that's been absolutely horrendous. So I think the Cowboys cover this one. I'm picking the over in this total. Clearly, these defenses have struggled this year. The Cowboys, when it comes to the run game, I think Chase Brown gets a big one here tonight. But the Cowboys defense has played a bit better of recent weeks. And yeah, I mentioned it. They played against the Commanders and the Giants. Not astounding offenses and not fantastic offenses. When you look at it in the end, yes, the Commanders have been good this year, but not in the recent times when the Cowboys have gone up against them. I'm looking at this game and saying, yeah, Cowboys cover. Total is going over here. This one should be a great one, though. Joe Burrow and this offense, they're just looking for some way to win games. Even if they have to put 35 points up on the board every single game, they're just hoping that one of these games, it turns into a win. I think they probably get a win tonight, but I think Dallas covers and keeps this one close with the spread sitting at 4.5. So this should be a great game tonight. Tune into this one later. The 4-8 Bengals, the 5-7 Cowboys. This one should be a good one. 8:15 tonight on Monday Night Football. But that'll do it for episode 28 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malamud. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Wednesday.